Hey everyone, welcome to week 5 of the college football season. My name is Mike Browning. I'm the host of the College Football Road Trip at CFBRoadtrip.com. I'm super excited because yesterday I posted my stadium report for the Carrier Dome at Syracuse University. So go check that out, find out about my experience at the game. It's a beautiful campus that I wrote about, the places that I visited while I was in Syracuse and the area around there, as well as some of the places that I ate. It was a great trip. I hope to be able to post about the second half of my trip and my game at Buffalo and get that out there for next week, so be on the lookout for that as well. In the meantime, last week was my poorest week of the season with a 5-5 record, so I'm looking to bounce back again this week. There are a lot of really great games this week. We really haven't had a week that had a letdown as far as the games yet this season, which is really awesome to see. So with that said, let's start jumping in to this week's games. We're going to start off this week with a Friday night game in the Big Ten. We have number 5 Iowa traveling to Maryland. So at first glance, you're going to want to pick Iowa, right? They're the number 5 team in the country. But Maryland has had a pretty good season so far this year. They're still undefeated, although still unranked. So the question is Iowa going to have any type of letdown going on the road to this Maryland team after the first few weeks of the season have gone so well? The answer to me is probably not. I think Maryland's going to be competitive for the first half, but Iowa's going to find a way to pull away in the second half. So because of that, I have number 5 Iowa winning on the road at Maryland in Big Ten play. Next, let's go to a Big 12 matchup that's a little intriguing. We have Texas traveling to TCU. Both of these teams have one loss on the season. Texas obviously had their loss a couple weeks ago to Arkansas. That loss is looking a lot better week by week as Arkansas keeps winning and moving forward in the rankings. TCU was really competitive but then lost to SMU last week. We still have the flag fiasco going on and the discussions there. So the question is, as Texas goes on the road in a Big 12 play, knowing what's happening with the SEC, how are the fans going to respond? Is the fan response on the road going to impact Texas in any way? Texas has looked really good over the last couple weeks. I kind of discounted the win over Rice because Rice is one of the poorer teams in the FBS. Texas Tech isn't a great Big 12 team, but still being able to hang 70 on them is still impressive no matter what Big 12 team it is. So I think Texas has the momentum. They definitely want to have this big win going into the Red River rivalry next week. So because of that, I have Texas winning in this game. I have Texas winning on the road at TCU in Big 12 play. Next, we have another ACC matchup. We have Louisville traveling to Wake Forest. Louisville has been a little bit of a surprise, but Wake Forest has been the bigger surprise. Wake Forest is still undefeated. They're 4-0 on the season. Will they be able to keep that winning streak going? I think Louisville's going to give them all they can. I think it's going to be a very competitive game going into the fourth quarter. I think Wake Forest is a legit team. I think at the beginning of the season, I thought they'd be around a 500 team. I think they'll be a little bit better this. I think they have a chance with Clemson on the downslide a little bit this season. I think Wake Forest has a chance to make it into the ACC championship. In order to do that, they need to win games like this. And so because of that, I'm going to pick them in this matchup. I have Wake Forest winning at home over Louisville in ACC play. Let's jump over to the other coast. Let's go to a Pac-12 matchup next. We have Arizona State traveling to number 20 UCLA. We know UCLA is coming off of their loss to Fresno State a couple weeks ago in what was considered a minor upset. Fresno State's not that bad a team. Arizona State is a 3-1 team as well, losing to BYU. BYU is also looking really good. So that Arizona State loss is not a big one. So the question is, who's going to win? Pac-12 South is going to be a pretty competitive matchup. You have UCLA, you have Arizona State. This might be a game that ends up deciding the Pac-12 South at the end of the day. I think that the game being in the Rose Bowl at UCLA is going to give UCLA the edge in this one. So because of that, I have UCLA winning at home over Arizona State in Pac-12 play. Next, let's go back to the Big Ten. We have number 11 Ohio State traveling to Rutgers. If you would have asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have said there's no way I'm going to be picking another Rutgers game this year. I thought they would be struggling to maybe win 3 or 4 games. I guess they could still end up that way, but they've looked pretty decent over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, they had the big win over Syracuse. Last week at Michigan, they were competitive to the end. You thought Michigan was going to pull away, but Rutgers kept fighting. Ohio State struggled a little bit so far this year, especially on the defensive side. I think Rutgers is going to be able to keep it competitive, especially playing at home. But Ohio State's just going to have a little too much in the end. They're going to pull away in the fourth quarter. I have number 11 Ohio State winning on the road at Rutgers in Big Ten play. Next, let's go down to the SEC. We have number 10 Florida traveling to Kentucky. Kentucky's another one of those teams that they're not ranked, but they're still 4-0 and undefeated on the season. So this will be a game to find out how real they are. Florida is obviously a really good team. They almost maybe were kind of able to pull off an upset against Alabama. They were at least competitive to the very end, even if Alabama kind of controlled that game. So Florida has a lot to play for. Florida wants to be able to make it back to the SEC Championship to play Alabama again. I think the SEC East is going to come down to Florida and Georgia in the end. And so because of that, Florida has to win this game in order to stay competitive. So because of that, Florida will win on the road at Kentucky in SEC play. Next, let's go to a Big 12 matchup between ranked teams. We have number 21 Baylor traveling to number 19 Oklahoma State. Baylor is another one of those teams that nobody really expected much from them this season, including myself. I thought they'd be a little bit better than last year, but they're still undefeated at this point. Obviously ranked in the top 25, that is a surprise to me. Oklahoma State struggled during the first couple weeks of the season as well, but they had a really impressive win against Kansas State last week. I think that Baylor is finally going to meet an opponent that's going to have a little too much for them. Oklahoma State, I think, is going to find a way to win. They seem to always win these types of matchups for the most part. So because of that, I have Oklahoma State pulling away with the victory here. Number 19, Oklahoma State, winning at home over Baylor in Big 12 play. Next, let's go to a big SEC matchup. We have number 12, Ole Miss, traveling to number 1, Alabama. Lane Kiffin obviously is reveling in being able to go to Alabama and try to pull off a victory over them. That would be a feather in his coaching cap to be able to pull off a win against the number 1 team in the country on the road. That Alabama wants to win this game and put it to Ole Miss and show that they're still the top of the heap. And until somebody beats Alabama, that's a team that I'm never going to pick against in this type of scenario. So I have to have Alabama in this matchup. Number 1, Alabama wins at home over number 12, Ole Miss. Next, we have our first of 2 matchups against top 10 teams this week. What a couple of games coming up. Number 7, Cincinnati, traveling to number 9, Notre Dame. I am super excited for this matchup. This is obviously the game where we find out, is Cincinnati for real, or are they just a pretender going against teams in a slightly inferior conference in the American? Notre Dame struggled again the first couple of weeks. They struggled in the first half against Wisconsin, and then in that fourth quarter, they just put it all together and they blew them out in the end. I picked against Notre Dame the last 2 weeks against Purdue and then against Wisconsin. I am not doing that again this week, especially with Notre Dame playing at home. I think they want to put it to Cincinnati. I think most of the country in this case wants to see Notre Dame put it to Cincinnati. So I am going with the Irish in this one. Number 9, Notre Dame wins at home over number 7, Cincinnati. And then our next game, our final game of this week, another game between top 10 opponents. Number 8, Arkansas against number 2, Georgia. I've talked about Arkansas the last couple weeks, especially after they blew out Texas a couple weeks ago. I knew they were a team on the rise. I knew they were going to be competitive in a lot more SEC matchups. I did not really see them being a top 10 team at this point. But they're going on a road against a juggernaut this week in Georgia. Georgia has just been blowing everybody away. I think everybody's expecting an Alabama-Georgia matchup in the SEC, and I'm going to have to keep going with that until somebody shows me otherwise. Georgia is just way too strong. Arkansas is going to keep it competitive in the first half. They might be able to even take it into the fourth quarter, but especially playing at home, Georgia's going to find a way to pull it out and win this game in the end. Number 2 Georgia wins at home over number 8 Arkansas. So as you can see, a lot of really great games this week. Go check them out. Enjoy yourself. Again, go to my website, cfbroadtrip.com. Check out my Game 11 report about my trip to Syracuse. And everybody, we'll see you again next week.